Welcome to the Great Neck Oral History Project. Today we're meeting with Stephen Walk of Great Neck, who's lived here in Great Neck since 1980. Thank you. Welcome, Stephen.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about your experience in Great Neck.
Okay, I never heard of Great Neck until I went to NYU, and my roommate was from Great Neck, Michael Mayer. They had a presence in Harbor Hills, and they had a distributorship for Hanes Hosiery, the women thing. And Michael was an unusual type of Great Neck person. They had a lot of money, and since the parents had an office, a showroom in Manhattan, he would frequently take me to dinner at restaurants like Al Cooper's and the Homestead. And basically, I got a picture of Great Neck as being very, very spoiled, and my wife-to-be and I vowed we would never live in Great Neck or Scarsdale. And in 1980, when we moved in, as I was on the driveway, she said, we have to really beware of using the word never. But the first time she came looking, in 1978, she told me the house was $100,000. I literally answered, $100,000? Clara Bow lives in homes like that. That's crazy. I'm not doing that. And so we looked for a 3-bedroom apartment in Forest Hills Gardens, but they unfortunately concentrate on 1-bedroom and 2 bedrooms. 3-bedroom and studios are hard to find. Had we found a place, we never would have come to Great Neck. So she started looking in 1978, and as I told her, the price was $100,000. By the time I made my decision in 1980, which she said she would no longer look unless I committed, it was $150,000. But that's not the real story. It was 1980, Jimmy Carter, and 12.5% mortgage. So I said, honey, we missed the boom, but I understand from the friends that tell us between taxes and saving on this, it's like we'll be rent-free. Never having any idea that Warwick Road would now be $1 Million Lane. So we started off, my son was about 6 and my daughter was 2, and Eileen quickly found a play group. And when they felt comfortable enough to say, should we chance the harmony we have by meeting with the men? And so this is how our first group of friends formed. They belonged to Bethel. At that time, there were 1,400 members, and services on the high holidays had to be done twice. A to G and L to Z, and they would flip it. It was very nice to form a play group and something called a Havurah with friends that we met once a month. And the commute for me, I worked for JCPenney Corporate on 6th Avenue. The commute for me was ideal. And my wife said to me, if you're going to look for friends like us, you'll be fine. If you're going to look for friends like we heard about Great Neck, you'll be miserable. And so the group of women who had the play group finally got together with the husbands, and they formed a group with us that met once a month, and it was all related to the temple, Bethel, and we finally joined. And as I say, I had a wonderful commute. My son enjoyed Allenwood Park, my daughter also, and it was lovely to be there. Yes, there were homes where my son was invited to a birthday party in very ritzy section, and when I came there, he came running out and said, "Guess what I got as a favor?" And I said, "Stock certificate," because that's what it looked like to me. He wanted to start to buy $80 jeans, and my wife made up a clothes budget, told me he would need 4 jeans a year. I said to him, as working for JCPenney Corporate, I could tell you about our $19 jeans, but I won't do that. I'll do the Levi at $32. And so he and my wife made up a clothes budget. My daughter, she was only 14 months apart from her brother, so she put 5 years between our daughter and son. And it was very unusual because they didn't go to the same school together. But when I would come home in those days without cell phones or anything like that, at 7 o'clock she would consider me late. So I was home at 6 o'clock. And we talked about the day and let the kids talk. You know, we didn't need Bill Cosby to tell us that that was the right way. And one day, Alyssa kept interrupting Hunter, who usually went first. And I said, "Why do you keep interrupting him?" And she said, "Because I'm here." And that was the day she became Daddy's little girl. It was a very wonderful time for us. My career at JCPenney Corporate, before they moved to Texas, was flourishing.
Where were the offices?
6th Avenue and 52nd Street, right near the Hilton Hotel, right across the street from CBS. And
You took the train in every day?
took the train in, and we found out that VPL didn't stand for Visible Panty Line, but for Vendor Paid Lunch. And I didn't know that Eileen was a terrific cook. She was going on straight for her master's, we agreed, because she would need that eventually for tenure. And we didn't talk as much about who we were. And after eating a vendor paid lunch, I came home to an enormous dinner. And I gained 25 pounds that year. And she's a sewer. And we have a picture where she has a full dress that is the same pattern as our curtains. And it's hysterical when we look at it.
Was that at the house in Great Neck?
No, this was at an apartment. I was getting $145 a week, and the apartment was $149. And the real estate person called me up and said, "We want your father to co-sign." And I took the train out there to Forest Hills, and I said, "I'm trying to establish my own life, and I will not have my father co-sign, but I really want this apartment." And she must have looked to me as the loving aunt or something and said, "Okay." And eventually we got an apartment on the highest floor with a terrace and garage for $450 a month. 3-year lease, and I thought we'd never move, but then we started to see that sandboxes weren't filled in Queens and other kind of things, and she started searching for homes, and we found this home at 2 Warwick Road, right down from Allenwood Park. And when I came there, Connecticut was known for lots of large landscape gardens. I said, "Where's the stuff to play?" And she said, "Come with me." And we walked down to Allenwood Park, which is half a block away. And so that became very terrific, and we enjoyed ourselves. Then Penny went to Texas. So these things in life happen, and I found myself in my mid-50s of interviewing again. So she went back to school. She had her master's because she went right through, and soon got tenure. And now she taught for 27 years.
Where at?
In North Shore Schools. It's 4 or 5 towns together, and they very much support the arts. And she enjoyed herself and has a nice pension. And when it came time for me to pick a pension option from Penny, I decided to punish them because they moved to Texas. And even though it cost a little, I took 20 years certain, which gave me not only Eileen to be a survivor if I passed, but my kids. And then about 15 years later, given my age group, I was offered $125,000 if I would invalidate the 20-year pension, and they put that right into my account, so it was a very smart thing. And also I started to do substitute teaching. They don't get many men, and this is in the North Shore District. And I remember coming into one upscale class, happened to be all women, gals, and they were reading The Scarlet Letter. And I said, did your teacher talk about how in the Scarlet Letter, adultery, you get this mark, but with Bill Clinton's woman, she gets a shoe line? And they said, no, and they wanted to talk about it. And then suddenly I said, what am I if I'm going past guidelines? But we have a wonderful, son who became about the 3rd or 4th employee at Google. And one day the owners passed and they said, hey, we just acquired this thing, YouTube, and we want you to be the liaison. And so it's hard to explain the exposure he had. Anytime that authors or businessmen wanted a tour, Hunter did the touring. And then he spent about 12 years and said, he wanted to leave. And they said, look, right now, our reputation, especially over in Europe, is not so good. So how about staying on and do something called Google for Good? And he wound up bringing in violinists and things from all over the world. I hadn't heard of Trinidad and Tobago since my stamp collection, but they came to the Guggenheim, and it was all filmed. People from all over, and they had this terrific concert, which gave a lot of good publicity to Google. But then finally they said, do you want a real job? And he said, no, I'm leaving. And he and a same level from Twitter, I don't know what it was called then, they joined up to do a venture capital that wasn't to take companies and bankrupt them like Toys R Us or flip it. It was to lift up new entrepreneurs and guide them for 7% equity, with the right that if the company took off, they had the right to purchase to keep the 7%. And one day we were in Aspen at his entertaining us, and my wife happened to say, out of 100 calls you get a day, how many do you follow up? And he said, maybe 2. Dad goes, isn't that very inefficient? He says, Dad, I either feel I learned something or I helped someone from that call. So thank you. My daughter became a teacher at Great Neck North. She had gone to Columbia for her master's. They told her wear a dress, high heels, all that, and she was going with the script. And this girl, she told us, kept doing this, and she was trying to ignore it. And finally she said, "What?" And the girl said, "My brother took you to the prom." You can't make this up. I think the shoes came off and all the formality went away, and she became a very beloved English teacher
Where at?
in Great Neck North, and only left when she became pregnant and took her leave, and then decided, it was commuting and dropping off her son Hunter at Cooper at our house, and so he used to fall asleep in my arms. Everything would tingle, but I wouldn't move. And she finally retired, and they live in Armonk. So it's been a terrific experience. There were things, it was not, there was very few Orthodox that we were aware of. There certainly wasn't a lot of Asian population. And then, when fleeing Iran, it's one of the few groups that could flee with their money. And our rabbi was trying to soothe the tensions, but he inadvertently said that not every one of them double park or break in the line. The rabbi is not realizing what you're saying. So it's been interesting. We actually have wonderful Asian friends and neighbors, and my wife is a real gardener, plants, knowledge, and they all come and talk about the garden and stuff, so that's been a very nice development.
Are you involved in any of the civic organizations or things of that nature?
Interesting. That's a good question. I am rather outspoken, but backing it up with volunteering or action. And when Great Neck Park District tried to sneak in a dog park in Allenwood Park, I, with the help of Councilman Lurvy, got that blocked. It turned out on the Birch Street side, the other end of the park, they were violating the 75-foot distance that was on the books. And so the mayor, particularly of not Thomaston, but the next town over, she was so happy because behind her back there had been a petition signed by the residents. So we got that done. Then, working with a Republican, Missy Phillip, I was able to finally get the hazardous intersection of Old Mill Road and Middle Neck. I was finally able to get left-hand turn signal, countdown, don't walk, walk. And I didn't know, but she, being a young person, went to TikTok. And a neighbor said, "TikTok's blowing up. You're getting amazing thank yous." And after that sort of subsided a little, a half hour later, I got a thank you from Curtis Sliwa. What is that, But that's been my activism for good. And I was a president of Brotherhood. The temple that was 1,400 members and used to have the right to do the service twice is now down to 400 or less. It's the story of all temples. In fact, there's a Pew research that shows that those children born 1973 and after consistently see Israel as occupiers, and they do not want to be identified as Holocaust survivors. So there's a tremendous shift in that. But I do stay current, with our assembly person, and just volunteer help to get their assistance when I need it.
Where are you from originally?
Brooklyn, New York.
Oh, born and raised there?
1943, where you could flop out of your house, maybe not having brushed your teeth, and there were 50 kids to play with. We knew nothing about Jewish, Italian, Catholic. We only argued about Duke Snyder, Willie Mays, and Mickey Mantle. And we had snowball fights with the other street, Coyle Street. It was a haven. I just had so much fun. And in 1954, for business reasons, my father moved us to Waterbury, Connecticut, and that was like night and day. It was not a anti-Semitic town or anything like that. It was just xenophobic. Italians lived in one section, Irish in the other section, blacks. I'd be walking on the sidewalk, and if they saw me, they got off the sidewalk, walked into the street. I was, not used to any of that. But Waterbury sort of shaped me to not be, especially with J.C. Penney traveling the country, to be the obnoxious New Yorker, So in a way, it helped. Very interesting background.
And tell me about a typical weekend here in Great Neck with growing up with the kids and raising the family here in Great Neck.
We had the parks always available. We could also take them for a drive to Jones Beach. There was another park that, Planting Fields, Arboretum, walk around there. They got to see the statues and all that stuff. Took them out to Heckscher Park. Eileen, as always, we have always belonged to a museum. And so there was lots of things to do like that. Some Jones Beach. I don't like the heat that much. And into the city, when prices were reasonable for Broadway shows, and there wasn't congestion pricing, and you could actually buy through Ticketmaster. They went to so many. They saw Miss Saigon twice. They saw Into the Woods, and we used to have very good seats. It was a wonderful sophistication for them, education. They only started to assume that it was normal.
How were the playhouses were up and running here in Great Neck also?
The movie theater was there. The Playhouse across the street seemed to be open, but not open. There was a great ice cream store there with a piano in the window and things like that.
Was that on Middle Neck Road?
Yes.
Do you remember the name of that shop?
No, but it was right across the street.
Yeah.
And we went to the movies here, went to other types of things.
Any business that's no longer here?
Millie's.
Tell me about Millie's.
Millie's, a destination restaurant. If a friend of mine was coming down from Westport to make a presentation on Y2K in Huntington, which never happened, he said, "Do you know Millie's?" Of course, I'll meet you there for lunch. And when they raised the rent, I really believe all of the leaders, of mayors, whatever, were so short-sighted not to pressure the landlord that we must keep Millie's, just like you would do in Manhattan for an important bank or, building. But really, people get elected here. Mayor of Great Neck Plaza, for years it was the same guy, and they made a really bad error letting Millie's go. She opened up for a while in the what do they call that shopping thing? And I don't go there that often, but it's a couple of miles out.
Where was Millie's?
It was on the corner of Middle Neck and right in town, and very, very good.
What was on the menu?
Everything, and really it was a varied menu. She was a dynamic person herself, and there used to be articles in the Great Neck Record, and then the Great Neck News, and now we have nothing that I know of. The paper that they hand out free at what do you call it? Great Neck Diner. So now friends, we got a glimpse of what was going to happen in Great Neck when our children graduated college. And I'm talking about leaders in the temple, leaders in brotherhood, volunteers. None of our children stayed. They've all moved away. They didn't say it was too expensive. They just wanted a different culture. And my daughter's in Armonk. My son first he got a job as a consultant, so he was in Cincinnati, but then he went to the West Coast, and as I say, became a Google employee, and they rent their houses during the COVID time in a wonderful, with an S, it's a nice upscale place, and they rent there.
Very good. Well, that's all that we have for you today. Thank you very much for coming in today, Stephen.
You're welcome.
All right.